Welcome to the Daily Bread with Mr. George Jonson, episode number 1. We're going live. Welcome, Mr. George Jonson.
Thanks for having me, Arnie.
Thank you. We always said you were going to be our first guest once we started rolling. And we've been through a lot together with the hookah industry, the hookah community, these flavor bands. So we're going to discuss what we've been through, what you've been through in the hookah community, hookah culture, the hookah businesses, where you started, the humble beginnings to where you are today. So please let us know how you got your start.
So I'm George Jonson. I wanted to open a hookah lounge straight out of working Starbucks. So my manager and I quit to go open up a lounge. And in our research, I met Eric Hoffman of Tangiers at a local hookah lounge. And he made his own bowls. And I thought it was really cool. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about making it tobacco. And I said, cool. Well, whenever you get it going, let me know. I'll be the first person to buy it from you. And the hookah lounge didn't work out. And then I went to work at a Persian grocery store. And my friend said, hey, why don't I build you a website and you can start selling hookahs online. So 03 started working on Hookah Company. And never looked back. Regal wasn't started until... we first batch release was in the beginning of 2010, and then
Nice.
I sold my online website in 2011, and came back to everything 2012, 2013, needed a job, and of course Eric's like, I got you. So, came back, stepped into Regal, stepped into wholesale manufacturing and just sales repping, and so that's been my daily bread has been Tangiers and Regals ever since.
Sweet. So as far as Tangiers, how difficult was it when you guys first started? Because I know it was made in San Diego. It was a new product, a lot more stronger than what people were used to.
Yeah, it was hard for me to enjoy it, right? And so I would smoke with Eric at the old Odyssey Lounge, and it put your head for a loop. I wasn't used to that stuff. Nakla was strong, but not like this. And when I came back to work, the popularity of Tangiers had taken off. Like I came back end of 2012 to 2013, and it was like, man, Cane Mint was released, and everybody was like super pumped on Tangiers. And Eric was like, hey, come down and be on a winning team. And I'm like, you are winning now, because in the beginning, everything was shipped through Hookah Company. We did all of his shipping, and he'd still pull up in the Ford Ranger and drop off his weekly shipments, and we worked together closely. But I still couldn't pack a funnel bowl to save my life, so he would come by my warehouse and I'd give him 5 bowls. I'm like, hey, pack me 5 bowls for the week, so I have something to smoke while you're gone. His bowl packing was always a lot better than mine. And of course, we were using Japanese coals or 3 Kings.
Back then, hookah was not as mainstream, you would say, or did not have as many imported products. I guess we had a lot of Chinese-made stuff. What was the most popular brand back in the day as far as tobacco?
Oh, man. When I first started smoking, we had, there was Nakla, there was Selum, also Egyptian. There was Sultan's, which was made in Anaheim. And then there was Mazaj, which was out of Canada. And that was basically it. I remember when El Waha came to the U.S. market in '04. So this guy, Abdul Karim, first started bringing it in. He was out of Glendale, actually right down the street from Atmosphere. And I used to go to his warehouse, and I was like, man, this guy just doubled my flavors that I could choose from with one little warehouse. So it was cool. There was other brands that would come, pop in, pop out, Alamasi, Alamir, or other little lines, Sultan, Al-Jawahar, just random stuff.
So what about, let's talk Tangiers for a minute, because back when Munchies started carrying Tangiers, not too many people were carrying it. We still had territories.
Yep.
There was a high demand for it. And I remember where Chris Jones pulled up, good old days, and before I had met you, actually.
Yeah.
And he made it sound like a big deal, and so I said, empty the car, brother. Empty the car. Let's see what you got. So that was my beginning with Tangiers because we had reopened Munchies back up. And, we decided to focus on hookah. So
I mean, Tangiers worked out for you though, right?
I heavily invested in it, definitely. I mean, Tangiers, Regals are still one of our hottest items, definitely. And we're still heavily invested. Can't complain. And it's not just the product itself, but the people behind it, like yourself, like the crew, Tess and Eric. And I remember going down to San Diego and spending almost a whole day with Eric.
Oh, he was a time vortex. So.
Yeah, so I had to wait literally all day. So it was joyful. I learned a lot. You speak to people in the industry, you speak about experience. I mean, there was a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience that I personally could have learned from because I don't smoke, but yet I definitely think the culture and tradition should stay alive and the businesses should stay in business. People are, we're small business owners, immigrant business owners. So why don't you tell our audience how we met?
So Chris Jones calls me up and says, hey, I got a good customer who needs KM Beast hookahs. You still have, good rapport with those guys. I said, yeah, KM and I are still very close. He says, no one can get them. This guy's willing to pay top dollar. So come up here and charge him like $45, $50, $60. He'll pay it, whatever. Okay. So I call him up and they're like, yeah, we'll get a shipment in on this date. So I go pick up a bunch of KM Beasts. I pull up to Munchies and Chris is there. And he's like, yeah, man, George is the best. He's got all the connections. He'll take care of you. And I had to kick back Chris probably something. I forgot how much it was. But, you're sitting there talking and I was like, man, it sounds like Farsi to me, like I wasn't Armo immersed at that point, right? And, thank God for the Armenian community. They pay my bills and they love our products and we love them back, right? And so that was our first time meeting and I was like, this guy's a pretty cool guy. In fact, like one thing I've learned over the years is like all my shops that are successful have somebody who people want to be around. Like they want to come to see you. They want to come, they are loyal to your business. They'll pay $1 more for their pack of smokes as long as they get their daily dose of Arnie, right? And so
that is definitely true for, I think, every small business, not just the hookah community.
Oh, yeah.
But
when I sold Hookah Company, I asked the guys later on in Texas, is like, was it a worthwhile purchase? And they're like, yeah, well, we kind of ended up giving your market share, part to us, part to Hookah John, part to 5 Star. It all just kind of got parted out. And we lost a lot of the customers because they just wanted to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, small business, they all want to talk to you. You are the business.
Well, definitely. You build the relationships with the customers, the knowledge. And sometimes it's about, like when you come down and you help us out and our sales team, even at the Hookah Lounge, how to pack, what flavors to pack, what are the hottest flavors now, what are people asking for. Those are little gifts that you can't just get from anyone, just an average salesman or an average company. So we definitely appreciate that. And I think that takes a big, benefit for the industry and the business owner and the small business owner.
We try to do events for our lounges, go, do flavor tastings, give away some t-shirts and raffle off a hookah and just get people excited and part of the community. And so we just did an event last week in Huntington Beach at Palms Hookah Lounge, and their community there was so tight-knit. And again, it was all around the owner. Tracy's a charismatic individual. I said to her the other day, I said, it's like you're running your own little cult. They're all drinking the Tracy Kool-Aid because they all want to come hang out with you. And it's a really nice scene. They remodeled, so it looks great in there. But those are the things that we want to do for our customers as well, is we're not just here to sell your product. We want to change the culture around the hookah, educate your customers to be more knowledgeable about hookah, and that will lift up the whole game.
Well, definitely. And I mean, loyalty is an important part of my business with our customers, with our vendors. So I think people appreciate that. And as time went by, I was more active and involved in politics and business. And I remember when you came down, and that was the first time that I ever heard of a flavor ban or anything. It was the SB 793, I believe.
38.
38, or
Yeah.
SB 38. 793 came after.
Yeah.
And when you told me we're all going to be out of business, this isn't working. If this passes, we're going to be out of business. I was like, holy crap, we got to organize, mobilize, and get moving.
Yeah, that was Hookah Chamber of Commerce, because you're like, hey, let's form a Hookah Chamber of Commerce and let's take some money from the industry and lobby. And you're like, I can get us a lobbyist. We'll make. We're not going down without a fight. And I'm like, yes, let's fight. Do this. Let's fight. I'm not I'm the pacifist type of personality. Artie's the scrapper, so we needed a scrapper to
Well, I mean,
push.
the industry, the people, I think everybody needed us. I think it was not necessarily us, but somebody to stand up for the community and, for the culture and tradition. And I think good people came together. Money didn't come so quick and it's so easy.
Yeah.
Had to cough up a lot of the money ourselves, pay for our own trips, pay for our own, and put endless hours in trying to just, speak for 2 minutes. You stayed on a call for 3 hours at some random city neighborhood council or city council or, county, board meeting.
Oh, before COVID, we were driving to all these things, so it was bouncing around. Like, it's one thing where I drove up to the state capitol in Sacramento for SB 38 just to have the oppose or or support for and against, and that's all you got to say. You didn't get a chance to speak, but that's where I met Rima and Issa. We're all sitting there like, hey, there's hookah people here, and so we all start like sitting together. Yanni was there and Johnny Habib, and we were like, oh, we're all hookah people. We're here for the same reason. And but COVID was really nice because we didn't have to drive because everything went on Zoom. So
that was the only best part of COVID.
Best part of COVID was not having to commute to all those flavor bans. And we had like almost 120 municipalities in California that we lobbied for. And it was, the hardest one was LA, which I thought would have been the easiest for us. And
unfortunately, sometimes, our own people, which the Armenian council member, Paul Krikorian, he had personal issues and he let it get in the way. And I think that's what hurt us. We still had our 8 votes. We still got, a carve out. But the bigger problem also was Mike Fewer, who was, adamant, and they took money from, Cancer Society, Health Association, Heart Association, all those. We call it Alphabet. I called it Alphabet.
Body parts people.
Body parts people. There you go.
Yeah.
Not so nice we are, but hey, it was true.
That was a rough learning experience that really shaped me in my political leanings, because with all the lobbying that we did across all these different counties and cities, the people who made the most sense for business were the Republicans and the Libertarians. And I'm like, this gay liberal California surfer kid, and I'm like, why is it that these guys are the only ones that are making sense, where they would stand up and say things like, isn't it already illegal to furnish tobacco to a minor? Don't we already have these books on, like, ready to go at these people? Or what about all the legitimate businesses here that pay their payroll taxes, that pay their taxes, that have licensing, that are here engaged in this debate? Are they not? They're going to lose their livelihood because of some bad actors? What about these people? Are we going to be grandstanding with our message of health at the cost of these legitimate businesses?
Well, what I also realized was we did a lot more education than we did lobbying, because we were grassroots, and people told me, they're like, dude, you're Armenian, you have like a Japanese mixed gay dude with you, you have a Palestinian, mixed Hawaiian mixed woman with you, you have a white guy in there, then you have we had everybody.
We're
It was
pot.
Yeah, and so people were kind of shocked because they expected us to be either all Armenian or all Muslim community showing up, and we were like, no, this is why it's so important for us to preserve the culture and tradition, because so many Middle Easterns are enjoying the culture and tradition, and it is part of our culture and tradition. And it's obviously evolved. I call it Americanized because everything gets Americanized here in America. So, through our efforts and meetings, we did a lot of education. A lot of these lawmakers didn't know that we were grouped in with, Juul.
Yeah.
And even Governor Newsom was like, oh, hookah is not the problem in classrooms. It's actually Juuls and vapes. And we're like, okay, so why are we even part of this?
Yeah.
And the original author, Jerry Hill, did not want to give us a carve-out originally. And he was very upset. And so were the, body parts health associations that we did get a carve-out.
Well, he pulled the first SB 38 was pulled because of our exemption.
Yeah.
Right? And so he said, oh, it's being watered down. I want this to go through with 0 exemptions. And we're like, hey, that's a win. It bought us another year. He comes back, SB 793, and here it is all over again. Same author, same thing. But we had the same ace up our sleeve, thanks to you, and went through and said, okay, we can still do this.
And we met with the Armenian caucus, Jewish caucus, Black caucus, Latino caucus, and the leaders at the time, Ben Allen, Senator DeRusso, they had no idea we were even part of the conversation. So I remember meeting with them, and they said, yeah, Arnie, this is not towards you. I voted or I co-authored not knowing you guys are part of this. Yeah. So
it was an education process, but there was also bias in that process where people were saying, it's anything flavored. Like the federal Palome, when he got up there in front of the House and said, well, there's no difference in the flavored tobacco. If you put it in, what is it called, a bong? It's still the same thing. It's flavored. And it's like, oh my God, nobody knows what masel is. Nobody knows what zagul was, that these things have been done for so long. Yes, we have modern flavors that have come in since the 80s and 90s, right? And they'll use that against us. Be like, oh, well, they didn't have candy flavors until the 90s. Yeah, well,
that's the Americanized part of it. And it's sad because they pick something very minimal and then use it against us. And it was funny because a lot of them had not even seen a hookah. Oh. When I was holding up a hookah at the LA County meeting, when I was holding a hookah up at City Hall, they're like, oh, that's a weapon, take it down. And I'm like, bro, it's a hookah. Yeah. They're like, no, you got to put it down. You might hurt somebody. I'm like, really?
Our crown tray could be considered like a ninja star of sorts. So who knows? The most bipolar day was the County Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles, which we were behind the 8 ball. And then we took that huge loss with no exemption. And then I was like ready to just go home and bury my head in a pillow and sleep it off. But we had to go to Burbank for their vote. Oh, yeah, that was a fun night because then we had all these people that had come in for the County Board of Supervisors. And we go over there and we spend the whole night and then we come off a win. And it was like the most bipolar day, right? These ups and downs. But luckily we got our carve out in Burbank. We got our, carve out in Glendale was a lot easier.
The people that understood the culture, and like you said, we were behind the 8 ball because they had bussed in all these kids for the photo op and everything was already in the books. They had already worked it out. And it's sad because certain politicians like MRT that actually got, indicted and he had to step down as council member and everything else. He actually brought forth the flavor ban, which was to regulate it and organize and start a department and tax it, and it ended up being a full-blown flavor ban with no exemption, no conversation, and some of those county supervisors would not even take a meeting with us. Yeah. We only had Catherine Barger's office that took a last-minute meeting, and she was supportive in a sense as far as the Armenian community, the culture. She understood it, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to get you guys a carve-out because she's only one vote. And a lot of people didn't realize that whether it's the Senate Assembly or City Council or county, you can get 1 or 2 understanding whether they're Republican, whether they're conservative Democrats, whether they're small business supporters or Middle Easterners that understand the culture. Their vote is only 1 out of 8, 1 out of 15, 1 out of 6 or 7. Depends how many people showed up, but usually it's an odd number. It just wasn't enough bandwidth for us, right? We had 3-4 people that would go to all these meetings. We had a couple of the hookah community folks that would join us. and it was difficult because the LA County, we showed up strong, and it was a big loss. Burbank, we showed up strong. West Hollywood was a Zoom call.
And that went relatively well. So that was a good one. I mean, we showed up in force Culver City because it was before LA. So we thought, hey, whatever Culver City does, LA is going to do as well. So Hookah John came, Bob Habib from The Spot came, and a bunch of other hookah lounges, and they're like, wow, we didn't know we had so many hookah people in Culver City. I'm like, you don't. We're just here to try to preemptively have something on the books that there's an exemption right here in LA. Long Beach was another fight that went well. Luckily, the guys at Escape also put in some heavy lifting there. So there's been exemptions. Irvine was another crazy day because I did the San Diego County Board of Supervisors in the morning, and then went to Irvine City Council in the afternoon, and then jetted up to, oh God, what's that city? Not Montebello. That East El Monte. I went to El Monte that day. I hit 3 council meetings in one day. And that was a lot of driving, and I didn't make the speaker card at El Monte, so I stood up because I had spoken at their previous meeting. So I was just stood up holding up a hookah behind everybody for the entirety of the meeting to send a message, and
I wish we had documented all that. Actually, now that I was thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, we have some footage, some basic when we did the LA City Council.
Yep. Fumari paid for some of those interviews that we did. We documented obviously the protests that we staged at LA City. Neve, who'd been to every single event, she live streamed and tried to get people riled up, and so she did a lot of outreach to the community.
Definitely, Neve is another champ. I mean, Rima and Chris continuously. We love you guys. They've been upholding the battle. And we went national. So what happened is George and I, when we originally started, I said, hey, we got to start the Hookah Chamber of Commerce. And we started it. We got it going. We hired Afrak Vargas. He became a homeboy. And originally, I think when we met with Atmosphere, when I spoke with him, I said, look, bro, we don't have money. We basically don't know what the hell we're going to do, but we're going to do something. So if you want to come down, talk to the people, maybe we can get people involved.
Well, that's how I got stuck being Secretary of Treasury and all these things. I don't balance my checkbook, so come on, why am I Secretary of Treasury? But it was because at Atmosphere, people came up to me and they're like, we don't know Arnie. I'm like, yeah, but he's Armenian. He's like, we know our people. We trust you. Well, I was like, okay. I'll be Secretary of Treasury. No money goes out without me signing off on it. Like, do you trust me to put money in? They're like, we trust you. We know you. I'm like, okay. That's my role. So here I am. I'm still Secretary of Treasury. It's like, what's your treasurer's report? It's like, oh man,
we're broke, and I don't know. Do we really need to?
You want me to be formal?
So that was, and look, that's how organizations start. That's how, because we didn't have the structure, and then obviously Fumari stepped up, Al Fakhr stepped up, a couple other brands stepped up, Hookah John. Most of the brands better than I.
Starbucks donated as well. But I mean, for the most part, it's been the largest financial contributions has been Al Fakhr, and we do have to thank Al Fakhr for all the money and time and effort, and including the current lobbyists that are retained across all the states. I mean, we battled, I think, 15 state bills that were introduced, including the age gating here in California, if without the deeper pockets of Al Fakhr to really care about the industry and keeping this business alive, we would have been stuck. Fumari with Rima and Maher and the organization, when they are in support, 100%. They're here for us, and they do a lot for us in many ways, not just financially. But yeah, it's always sad to sit here and go, the infighting and the lack of community support from some people. It's like that old Abraham Lincoln quote of, in the end, you will not remember the evil that you fought. You will remember the inaction of your friends, right? Something to that nature. And it's definitely true, where even you sit there and go, come on, you guys, like.
And the sad thing was, we're in the trenches, throwing down basically. And it wasn't just for us. It was for everybody. It was for the culture, for the community, for literally for us to be able to keep our doors open. And there was people like, hey, why would I donate or why would I even show up? They're already doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, bro? Like, really? You're going to just sit it out? And
I used to tell people, time or money, they're both the same. So you can either, if you don't have money, come to one of the council meetings. Come and speak your mind. I'll help you fill out a speaker card. I'll put your agenda number on it, and I'll walk you through kind of talking points, what needs to be said at each different meeting. And they wouldn't put in the time. So, okay, fine. Oh, bro, I have my business. I have to run it. Great. Put a contribution in. Put some money in. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, there were a few solid people that did come through. Some of them came to the actual city when we did the in-person meetings. Others made the phone calls, called in, wrote the emails. We do have a lot of great people in the community. But like you said, it's sometimes the most important times when we were in the trenches, we needed money. We needed to actually send mailers. We needed to make phone calls. We needed to hire more lobbyists. There wasn't too many around. I mean, I had to keep funding it from my side. I think after probably Al-Fakhr or Fumari, I contributed after most from those two companies.
Oh yeah, you put in as an individual and a small business, put in more than many of the other medium businesses in this game, right? So I would say Al-Fakhr financially, dollar wise, yes, number one, and Fumari number two, and then you number three. And it's like, you're not a manufacturer, No, you don't even smoke hookah.
I actually took the fight personal when we started getting shut down, when people were looking at us like, screw you guys, like, why are you even here? You're not important. You're not important to this conversation. So, and it was a big learning experience for me because I knew politics, but I didn't know that, I don't want to say dirty, but how insensitive or how there's no feelings involved. If you make enough noise, they will care. If you don't, you're not relevant. And so we needed numbers, both financially and people showing up. We couldn't get them at certain meetings. We had 3-4 people staying up until I think West Hollywood went until 1 a.m. Yeah. And, if we weren't there, we could have flipped any minute because there were opposition that were there and kept, hammering, for the children, if we could save one kid's life, it's worth it. And I'm like, okay, when did you see a drive-by hookah? Or when did you see a hookah in a classroom? When did you see kids smoking hookah? And that's what we were for. We were for regulating the industry. We were for, hey, they shouldn't be under 21 in the lounges.
Yeah, and we're for responsible regulation, and that's the key that we were getting into. And our talking points got more and more refined over the years. And I do want to give quick shout outs to some of the smaller vendors, not contributors, not just the big guys like you top three, but Pharaohs. They make these glasses that I'm smoking on right now. They contributed every month. Mia Sarai, definitely up there in the top 5. They always contribute every month. Khalid Mamoun contributes every month. The Spot Hookah Lounge, they contribute every month. And all the other community members where we have, 50, 60 regular diehard hookah people that put in $10, $25 a piece. BB Hookah Lounge, they signed up so many of their customers. Like, you gotta be a member of NHCA before, you hang out with us, right? So,
well, definitely. We definitely thank them and appreciate them. And they were by our side, whether, in person or contributed, so we could be able to hire the lobbyists and be able to survive. So definitely thank you to all the brands and all the people that even called in and showed up and actually cared. It comes down to, did you care enough to participate? And it also shows up, the way I always say, the way you show up in business is the way you show up in your personal life. And the way you show up in your personal life is the way you show up in business. So a lot of these people, I don't want to say they're not good people. They're not, but I get the phone calls now like, hey, bro, can you come help us? Like, we have issues at the city, or we don't know what to do. They're taking our, food license away or our alcohol license away, or we have to shut down. And I don't want to say you might have been in a different position if you had participated, but at least you would have been more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Look
at the people who call us up and say, hey, the city won't give me an outdoor permit, like, are you an NHCA member? No, but can you get the city to give me an outdoor permit? I'm like, that's not what we do.
Let me build it out for you real quick. It's like, and that's the sad thing about, I think I've seen it happen across industries and across different businesses. So it's not just the hookah community itself, but this is also a learning experience, I think, for us and for them to realize, like, get involved. If something has to do with your livelihood, it has to do with your bread and butter, your daily bread, get involved. Whether it's politics, whether it's finances, whether it's showing up and meeting your senator, council member, assembly member, congressman, it doesn't cost you a thing to pick up the phone, call them, say, hey, I own a business or I live in your district. I would like to have 5 minutes of your time.
I mean, look at how many things we learned, like, okay, whose district is that? Who are they connected to? Do we know anybody connected to them? The brainstorming behind all that. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I know this guy who works for that guy, or I have a staffer who's good, who plays pickleball with them, or whatever it is. And it takes networking and know-how and savvy. And we miss Afrak too. He was a homie. He's a G, and it's a shame we can't have him on right now. He's great though.
Afrak actually helped us a lot maneuver, and kind of through the Capitol. When I went up there to the Capitol, I call the Capitol a high school. I swear to God, it's like high school. Everybody knows everybody's business. You got to chase a senator up and down a staircase to have your voice heard before a committee meeting. Some of them took meetings with us. Some of them were dodging us. The ones that were dodging us were like, hey, we're going to catch up with you. You're on that committee. You're going to hear us out.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time for us because I did not know what I was getting into. And I just had my baby and, my wife's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, babe, I got to go to Sacramento. What are you doing in Sacramento? Lobbying? I don't know. Talking to senators?
Talking about self-sacrifice. It's like, I'm going to miss the birth of my child to be up in Sacramento lobbying.
Yeah, no, we had just brought the kid home, and I was like, holy crap, she's not going to be happy. But, hey, it was a commitment I had made. And so it was an interesting beginning. And it took us, 3-4 years through COVID until about now. And
we still got battles. They're still coming through.
And, we're not as equipped and as pumped, and we're pretty worn out, I think, for the industry to get involved. And it's going to take a new generation or a new wave of energy and funding and, fight. Because I think the only reason the Heart Association, the Lung Association, the, body parts associations and so on, and it was actually Soros funded. Mike Fuhr, the LA city attorney, has a program, the tobacco enforcement program, that is actually getting grants federally and statewide grants, $4 to $40 million, which is crazy for them to have cops and lawyers and everybody on that team. And we don't get any money, right? So they're all funded. The Cancer Society is funded by Soros and all the organizations. And it all started because of menthol. It's been 40, 50 years they're trying to kill menthol. And they finally had it, with SB 38, and then we bought another year, then SB 793.
Yeah.
And then we had the sunset clause, so it's about to end. And I think starting next year, they'll be enforcing more in the city and state level. But
we're going to be getting a lot more phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
Help me.
That's going to
help me, George. Come
on. And let's talk about that. Let me, man, there's a lot of people out there that want to know what they can do. So the health code says you cannot have any employees smoking hookah. City of LA, we got almost the worst deal ever, or worst text inside the legislation, inside the policy, because of Mike Fuhr. So they wrote that any smoke passing through any device, basically, and you can't have a health department permit, you can't have an alcohol license. A few of the alcohol places got grandfathered in if they had an alcohol license and a tobacco permit at the time the law passed. And if you didn't, you can't just go get an alcohol license now. You have to smoke outdoors. They're still citing lounges that have the restaurant and smoking in the same space. You have to divide them. Smoking can't have any food served there, technically speaking. But Glendale, Burbank is totally different. There's alcohol licenses,
I mean,
health permits.
Even the wording that we got on the state level, which you opposed vehemently, was the adding the labor code into the language, which gives a very broad interpretation of what could be enforced.
Correct. So if the challenge is this, so this is where I had to bump heads with Mike Fuhrer, who in my opinion is a piece of crap, and he's running for Congress, and do not support that guy, do not vote for that guy. He's all about himself. He has zero common sense and zero F's to give about Armenians, about Muslims, about the community as a whole for the hookah. So he wanted to shut everything down. The way they did it was like a death by 1,000 cuts. My point was, if you work in a hookah lounge, you know you're working a hookah lounge. So you're willing to take that, whether it's that risk or to work in that environment. Just like if you were working in a cigar lounge. You know it's a cigar lounge and people are smoking cigars. If you don't like the smoke, you don't want to be in a smoking area, don't work there. So then they were saying, well, servers. Okay, well, servers, if it's indoors, okay, maybe having hookah indoors, we could have ventilations. Why don't we install carbon filters? And we gave them all these solutions, and very few were listening to us. Yeah. And that's what sucked. But at the end of the day, right now, the way they enforce is they come down, and if you have a cup of water, now you're in violation of the health and safety code. Not if you have underage smokers, not if you have drunk and intoxicated people and things like that, but if you just have even a soda or a cup of coffee, and that is what's going to kill the industry, because I don't think any hookah lounge by itself can survive with only hookah.
Oh, and they know that. The women that were advocating for all the exemptions, fighting against our exemptions in many of the municipalities I went to, we got to know each other because it's the same people at every place, yeah. Right? And so they would come up and say, hey, you have your exemption. We knew kind of how the dice were going to shake. And says, we know you're going to get your exemption, but we won't really hope that you guys will push for hookah bars being to the letter of the law. Well, that's because they know that the interpretation of the law, thanks to Kamala Harris, could be interpreted as a cup of water is now in violation of that.
Yeah, and that's what was unfortunate, because all it took was one or two council members or senators or attorney general that interpreted it, and then it kind of became the rule of the land. And in court, while it wasn't case law, in court it was like, oh, by the way, Attorney General Kamala Harris said this. And everybody was like, oh, she said that? Well, that must be true. I'm like, why would she even say that?
So like 1994, they introduced the Clean Air Smoking Act for businesses to try to get rid of smoking in restaurants. It was fought for 4 years until 98, till it finally passed. The exemption for smokers' lounges said that it was a business that was dedicated to the majority use of it was for
sales
has to be derived from tobacco. And so everybody said, okay, what's majority? 51%. That's majority. So that's what we were going by. Fast forward 2010, Business and Ethics Committee wants clarification. They say, well, we interpreted it as 60-40. Okay, so I tell all my lounges, hey, 60-40, make sure your kebabs are cheaper and your hookah's more expensive, right? Do what you need to do. Well, 1 year later, Kamala Harris, when she's AG, writes on official letterhead saying, no, her interpretation of that is that all sales, majority means all sales are hookah tobacco. So, I mean, what does that do for cigar bars? What does that do for other things? I mean, it's...
Well, cigars also got carve-outs because obviously poor people and, average Joes don't just smoke cigars. Yes, there are a few that smoke cigarillos and all this other stuff. But most of the cities we went to, did not mention cigars because obviously cigars are not, flavored. While they are, if you really ask me, because not all of them taste the same, so they have flavor in it, and not all of them are driven originally. Some spray the leaves, some have flavored tobacco in them, and obviously cigarillos and other cigarettes, and not cigarettes, but cigarillos and blunts.
Yeah, they were really going after blunts in some of the cigar language because the exemptions for cigars were, I believe it was with the wholesale value of $12 or more per cigar. So that's really leaving the premium market untouched, which is, the politicians and the rich people's favorites, and then really going after poor people's stuff, which saying, hey, no more blunt wraps with flavors, right? And everyone switched to hemp and done other things. And
But people are still getting it from different states. People are getting it from, driving it down from other states and selling it out their trunks. Some wholesalers even have a lot of stock left over that they need to unload. But nobody knows what's coming. I think in the next year, we had 3,000 tobacco licenses or tobacco permits in LA.
yeah, and
BTRCs or tobacco. I think we're gonna probably at least be down to half, if not less.
yeah.
About 20% of that was hookah. 600 to 800 shops were hookah, retailers mostly, or lounges.
And most of the smoke shops can't survive on just hookah. And so they're not making any money on cigarettes, right? So they're deriving most of their profits from lotto ticket sales or vaping apparatuses,
Well,
and
no,
cheap
I mean,
cigars.
as a retail store owner, so what's happening is this. Vapes are gone. Juuls, you only have tobacco flavors. All the big puffers are gone because they came up with 5, 6, 7,000 puff disposables that people can now buy online and get it shipped to them. Some people can still get their hands on a few, but that was 50 to 70% of smoke shop sales because even Marlboro wanted to get out of the tobacco business, tobacco farming, because America has a large union and pesticides and herbicides, and it just takes more power, manpower, and laws and regulations to grow the tobacco versus having a factory in China manufacture Juul and ship it over. That's why they bought Juul originally. So what also happened was we saw the market shift, and so all these tobacco shops, as an entrepreneur and a cannabis, and I've owned cannabis businesses. People are now smoking vapes and joints. So they're no longer smoking bongs and glass and pipes. It's a very small margin, right? So that's like 10%, 5%, where before it used to be about 50, 60%. So look at a retail smoke shop now. In LA, they have to be hookah only. So they can't have bongs, they can't have pipes, they can't have Juuls, they can't have anything. Blunts, loose leaf tobacco, anything. And if you have that, you can't have hookah.
And
So
the exemption was given to us kind of poorly in LA City, where okay, you can have hookah for on-site consumption. Everyone agreed on that, and then De Leon gets up and says, "Well, I don't see the difference between going to a bar and having a drink or going home and making myself the same drink at home. Why can't these places retail the tobacco?" And so we were pushing for our full retail carve out too, and it ended up getting like halfway met, where it says, okay, on-site consumption and to go at an existing grandfathered lounge. So that takes out a lot of the stores and the grocery stores where like the Middle Eastern community gets their hookah products from.
yeah, and I mean, that's the thing with retail. Now you have to be hookah only. So technically you could be a hookah lounge and hookah retailer. Or if you're a lounge, you add a little small store next to it to sell it. But it's not the same. It's kind of like you got to run down to the liquor store, buy something, and go home. Like you said, grocery store. We agreed that grocery stores and, gas stations were not the right place technically.
On the state level, that was a give that we gave Hill in our negotiations, was that 21 and up only establishments. And we thought that was a responsible give to them, to where you're complaining about the marketing of tobacco products. Well, if the children aren't there to see those products, then what does it matter.
Yeah, if it's 21 and over retail or 21 and over lounge,
you don't have to worry about a kid walking past it and seeing it behind the counter.
So that was good with California, but it wasn't good enough for LA. We just had too many negative components and false translation. And when we had the city attorney holding up a crack pipe, calling it a hookah, I mean, Salinas, I think her name is.
That was ridiculous. Such a slap in the face.
That was pretty racist, if you ask me. That was discrimination. But when we also reached out to City of LA and we wrote a letter to Mike Fuhrer and no response, completely ignored. Wouldn't take meetings with us. Salinas wouldn't take a meeting with us. Mike Fuhrer wouldn't take a meeting with us. And what's funny is this. I'm the president of the Los Angeles Valley Chamber of Commerce and Sunland Tujunga Chamber of Commerce. And Mike Fuhrer's campaign manager reached out to us and wants to meet with us so that we could support him for Congress. And I asked our board, I said, you know what? I want to actually bring that guy down just to chew him out. Just to invite the hookah community to come down and just let them have it.
You told me that you were going to see him at one of those parades, right, during the summer or something, and I was like, oh, man, don't chew him out in front of everybody.
Well, he actually wouldn't talk to anyone. He was sitting in a Mazda Miata, and I actually was behind him in the 65 Mustang, and I have pictures of it. The guy looked stupid. And I thought about it. I'm like, good, we didn't give you a car that, you look legit.
That guy panders so hard. Like, I was just trolling him on his Instagram during all this stuff because he would make the most pandering videos to post out there. So disingenuous that it was like how can anybody take this guy seriously? You're going after shift seat. I would support anybody before that guy.
And the sad thing is he's the second most fundraiser because he has nothing to do but to pretty much literally knock on doors. And this is what you call a career politician that's in love with his position, not the people, not for the right reasons. And it's a sad time because that's what we're seeing all over the state. Now, Rima and Chris have been doing a bigger job and a better job at, on different states.
Well, we just came off our Honolulu thing, and then this week we had our news out of Indiana, and so little wins here and there they accumulate. So you want these wins to keep happening, but you got to take wins and losses. I mean, we were batting a pretty junky average in California, and it was hard pressed to get any exemptions, especially in Northern California. It was tough. And
what's interesting is seeing the changes happen. People were more, tolerant of cannabis than they were of hookah. And they didn't even consume hookah or know hookah, but yet they smoked weed and they were like, well, weed is a medicine and hookah is poisonous. And I'm like, dude, what do you care if you don't smoke it?
That was the biggest slap in my face from your Adrian Nazarian guy here. That was a state assembly member. We go meet him at his office, and he goes, well, why don't you just make your pipes into bongs and refit them for cannabis?
That's and smoke CBD. His thing was, why don't you smoke CBD? CBD is healthy.
It's a growing industry, and you're dying. And I'm like, I'm like, what a slap in my face. Like, I don't partake in marijuana, so this is my vice.
Yeah, and that actually, what's interesting is that explains to you how unknowledgeable, unreasonable, and arrogant they are. I mean, that's like telling a Muslim, well, why don't you believe in Jesus just because we're this? Or telling somebody else, it's like, if this is my culture, this is my tradition, respect it and love it. And the worst part of him, Audrey Nazarian, he is Armenian. He's Persian Armenian. He understands hookah very well. Even he said that, all my family smokes hookah.
Oh, yeah, and I've been to the spot right here in Encino.
Yeah, and so it's like they know, and they weren't, they're trying to reach out for votes and money and support, and all of a sudden they care about us or we're relevant. But in reality, they weren't there for us. And actually on the state level, he wasn't there for us. Until he voted for it, but he wasn't supportive to make phone calls and have conversations. Yeah. And it was a sad time.
I bumped into our great mayor in San Diego and bumped into him in the halls in Sacramento. And he kind of recognized me, and I recognized him. And it's like, hey, I'm here for the tobacco thing. And he goes, okay, well, that's going to be an uphill battle. I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. I drove all the way from San Diego. I'm your constituent.
Literally.
And you look kind of familiar. I'm like, I think we've danced together at Rich's a few times. There's definitely been a few moments, at gay bars together. So, I mean...
That's the interesting part of, people change, but people remember.
That was like the first comment Rima ever heard of my vulgarity was when we first met in Sacramento. And then she and Issa and I are standing out there like, what are we going to do? Like, okay, well, we gotta organize. We got to get the stuff together. And we should start making mailers to all the state assembly members and state senators. And I said, well, I can work remotely making sales. So I can move up here. My buddy has an apartment down the street. I can crash on his couch. And if I have to suck every dick in this fucking hall, in this Capitol Hill to get our exemption, there's no one more qualified in the hookah community to do it than me. They're like, their eyes like what this big, like, what the hell? How vulgar is that?
You're like, look, I'm going down with the ship. I'm going. No, and look, it's interesting that there are a lot of communities from, the gay community, LGBT community. I don't want to get into everything else because there has been, conversations. And it's interesting because hookah is where everybody comes together. It's actually socializing all communities and all walks of life and all people. They come together. Angel hookah, everybody has fun, laughs, jokes. Like I have not actually, let me see. One or two Armenian hookah bars, maybe. But every other places I've gone to, everybody's welcoming. Everybody is like, hey, come, chill. What's your name? Who are you? Where are you from? What's your story? And everybody breaks bread and has fun and enjoys life.
There's a whole spectrum, right? Because you can go to a very traditional Arabic lounge in the Gaza Strip of Orange County, which we call Brookhurst, right? So Anaheim, and you can go play tawla and sip tea, and we would Haj Ali and he used to import caravan hookahs. He would take me after Friday prayers. We would go over there and smoke hookah and just talk all night. And it brought together people from different walks of life. And that is one of the best parts of being in the industry is that I get to travel and meet and talk and just sit. And hookah's a social thing. So you just sit around and you pass the hookah and you chat, and it brings everybody together.
Yeah, and adults. So people out there that are wondering, we've got 12, 15, whatever, 17-year-olds. No, 99.9% of the time, it's adults sitting around.
I mean, it's great to talk to the younger generation because I say I do hookahs, and my nephew's 16, and he's like, yeah, sure, but isn't that for weed? They don't know what it is.
They don't know, and
that's
mostly
fine.
They don't care. I think it's like weed and other forms, like even shrooms, are picking up right now.
Big time.
Since hookah and vapes are being banned, a lot of people are gonna shift. I mean, if somebody wants, and I don't want to say hookah is healthier or healthy for you, but it's less harmful.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't make any claims like that because who knows? And I think that the psychedelic aspect of things, where you have kids who are getting their hands on THC candies, like we're losing our culture to people saying, well, you guys have a white gummy bear flavor. Doesn't that mean that you guys are marketing to children? No, adults like candy too. 1. 2, we don't even have a psychedelic ingredient inside real gummy bears, which is what you can get at any dispensary.
Well, it was the popcorn lungs that everybody was, the panic happened, which were the little man greed. People were putting, vitamin E acetate inside the vapes so that they would make the oil harder, because they would cut it so much it would be too liquid and nobody would want to buy it. So with that, a lot of people are manufacturing THC and Delta 8 vapes in China, and they don't know exactly what it is. The packaging says Delta 8 or THC. How do you know it's not Motrin in there?
Well, down on 3rd Street, they were selling all those packaging with the empty cartridges that look like, and it's like tested THC 35% and all these numbers, and it looks legit, like the same packaging you would get in a licensed regulated dispensary. But no, the Third Street wholesalers are packed full of them so that people can put whatever the hell they want in it and sell it to their friends. And so, of course, they adulterate a product to stretch it or step on it or whatever you call it. And then, of course, vitamin E acetate isn't bad for your skin, right? People use it as a thing, but it's not water soluble. So when you're vaporizing and putting it in your lungs, I mean, you're doing damage to yourself.
Well, it coats your lungs, basically.
And it wasn't a nicotine product. The media kept pushing it as, oh, Juul and popcorn lung. No. Get it right. Illegal cannabis and popcorn lung, not nicotine product, not ENDS products.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the same thing the cannabis industry is also facing. Now they're going after cannabis flavored products and things. They haven't gone so hard yet, but they've got certain laws that didn't pass this past legislative session.
Yeah, well.
Or actually, a few of them that got on the governor's desk, he didn't sign. Because I think Newsom has his hands in the cannabis business also. He does have a hospitality company that invests in cannabis. But I mean, at the end of the day, where do we go? What happens with the hookah community? What happens with the culture? Are we going to be forced underground? Or do we have to literally smoke hookah illegally in order to keep the culture and tradition alive?
Moonshine, baby, it's gonna be good. You might go blind from that bathtub cane mint, but it's gonna work. It's gonna work.
It'll give you that buzz and the head rush.
I always had like this thing. It's like I should have my grandma sew some 250 gram pouches in my trench coat because that's the way it feels like we're going.
I thought about it. I'm like, I'm gonna go down to City Hall or even on some LA City street and sell hookah tobacco, just like they're selling food and everything else without permits, without any, seller's permit, health permits, anything. You got all these taco kebab sellers that are selling everything, and hell, let's just set up on a sidewalk and slang hookah, basically.
That's how it's like in Lebanon. It's amazing. Like, you can order a hookah delivery to your protest. You can order a hookah delivery outside your gym, and someone pulls up on a moped with coals in a bowl, and you're like, this is amazing. But our permits in California, the 15,000 that are issued in the state of California, are to that location. And so that's it.
Can't, and same with LA, you can't deliver tobacco. You can't ship tobacco, which is another stupid thing. It's like, but people in LA can have tobacco shipped to them, which is
different than like Washington State, right? So Washington State no longer allows any tobacco shipping into the state, along with a bunch of other, I think like 8 or 9 other states have regulations against it. So it's with federally, right? The Postal Service had gotten rid of cigarettes. Well, because they think cigarettes is just tobacco, now they're saying, hey, you can't ship tobacco with us because we don't ship cigarettes. And I'm like, it's a different tobacco class. It's actually not mentioned in the bylaws, but sure, whatever. So there's very few trucking companies that even want to take our pallets and ship them because of the implications of shipping nicotine products across state lines.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a federal offense. And a lot of people have approached me and said, hey, why don't you do this? You'll make a lot of money. I'm like, dude, I don't need more money. I just need to spend less money, technically. And I mean, it's like doing something illegal to make $2 off a $25 sale is not worth it. I don't recommend it to people. There will be people that do it. Maybe they make more money. I don't know. I mean, when they were knocking off cane mint, and I'm like, dude, you can't continue doing that. It's not the same.
It's not the same, and
consumers are not stupid. I mean,
and legislators did reevaluate taxing things, because when they tax it so high that it makes it financially so beneficial for people to bring it in from out of state, they're going to lose the tax base income. Yeah. So if you keep a reasonable tax rate, reasonable regulation, they know that they'll benefit more from it, right? I'm sure the sunset clause was also beneficial for the state of California, because they said, $300 million was their estimation just on menthol cigarette taxes alone.
And that's, I think, why the enforcement has not been happening, because I was told that City TFA went into some stores and they said, look, we're not the enforcement. As long as you have your papers in order, you've got invoices, we're
Pay
not.
taxes,
You pay your taxes or you bought them paid taxes, we're okay with that. We don't know what's going to happen, guys. I mean, could I say that it's going to stay this way and they're just going to leave us alone? I hope so. And that's why I say the fight is not over and we need to continue fighting, because at the end of the day, they're not going to leave us alone until we're dead. I mean, that's just the way I see it. And so we need to continue fighting. We need to continue building relationships. Politicians are not your enemies. Introduce yourself, meet them. Business and politics go hand in hand, because before people used to drive politics. Now politics drives business and literally people. And that's the sad truth that we live in, sad reality. So people need to get involved. Hookah people that are laid back and not voting and not giving a damn. I think we signed up a lot of people to vote. I think we got a lot of people involved and hyped up to actually get involved and vote and participate in the election process. But everybody needs to get involved.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast on like the money in politics, right? But money is how the world works, right? But there's been some really great cases where we've got a carve out because they heard our message. You're genuine people. We're not paid lobbyists. I volunteer all of my time. You volunteer all your time.
Yeah.
We go show up. We're the real deal. We're not here saying that we're representing something. We're representing our livelihoods, our businesses, our families, and that got us some wins. And that's the shimmering opposite side of seeing how money gets into politics and how much it drives things versus, hey, this person sat down, they took the time because you're a constituent in their district, they listened to you, they listened to their constituency and said, okay, you guys have a legitimate argument and you guys are the real deal.
Well, I mean, they saw that we came from the heart, we came, grassroots, we came with our stories. Each one of us had our story. My grandpa used to smoke hookah, and kids knew that it was adult time, basically. They weren't smoking inside. They would go out in the patio, after dinner, enjoy their hookah. Kids got ready for school or bed, and that was that, and...
Or I would get choked up talking at city council meetings when I bring up, my experience, my grandparents' experience as Japanese Americans and losing everything during the war, their property, their homes, their possessions. You had to take only what you could carry because of a fear of Japanese people being a danger to society, and they were taken forcibly from their homes and their land. And so when I would say that I'm the breadwinner for my family and I live with and care for my 90-plus-year-old grandparents who already lost everything, I would get choked up. And then people would come to me like, good job, Hollywood. I'm like, I'm not fucking joking. I'm serious. Like those tears are real.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember we had an African-American council member that him and I had our back and forths, but what was it that he said? He said, if it becomes law, it's going to be criminal, or it's going to be against the law to smoke hookah and this, that, the other. So, what's your solution? What's this? And something I told him was slavery was legal. That didn't make it right. Right? So, and his eyes opened up. You could see he got heated. And I said, look, it's the truth. I wasn't around during that time. But just because some people sat around and passed laws to make, a certain group of people slaves, did that make it right? Did that make it okay? No. So I told him, I said, now you have the same position, and now you're enslaving our culture and our tradition.
You always had those really tough singers.
And he hated us, but then his staffer was like, dude, you really made sense. You really had a point, because we thought about it, and we actually had a meeting about what you said. And I said, look, genuinely, I'm stating facts. I'm not making anything up. I'm not trying to knock anybody. It's the truth.
Our message was so good and so great on SB 38 that when SB 793 came around, Newport and RJ Reynolds and those guys brought in their own African American cultural argument, and they went hard. And some of their speakers they had were amazing. They would get like a Baptist minister from Compton who would get up there and give fiery speeches where you're going, yes.
Yeah, it was like you're in this church and that's
I was like, oh, preach.
You go.
It was crazy.
And the interesting thing is they were divided. So there was a group that said, oh, menthol is killing African Americans and low-income families. Then they were saying, okay, well, if you're banning tobacco, why don't you ban everything? Because tobacco is bad for you.
Yeah.
So if tobacco is bad for you, why don't you ban everything? Why are you just banning what the African Americans are selling or smoking, right?
Well, Manhattan Beach already did that, right? They banned all tobacco, and then Beverly Hills just kept their one rich people cigar lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel, and then everything else was banned.
Everything else was banned. But if there was enough funding, I think people could sue and overturn those decisions because it's a constitutional right, right? Is it discrimination? Did they get people addicted to it? And now, in the 60s, doctors recommended cigarettes.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that was a shameful part of history when everybody thought smoking was healthy, right? We know the dangers of
everybody knew it wasn't healthy. Now, the other thing I learned between growing in the cannabis industry, and I've grown my own tobacco, not for my own use, but I've grown it just because it was interesting and it was a challenge. People spray pesticides and herbicides. So imagine if you're Philip Morris and you have acres of land that you're growing tobacco on, and it's getting infected, right? Or it has powdery mildew. You're not going to just cut your farm down, throw it out, and say, okay, we'll start again next year. You're going to spray that thing with pesticides, herbicides, and even growth hormones to get the biggest yields, the most yield out of your farms. Well, those are all poisonous. Those are the things that cause cancer, not the actual organically grown tobacco leaf. But like I said,
I mean, we're not doctors, and you can't make that claim.
Well, no, because actually growth hormones cause cancer and enhance cancer tumors because they're growth hormones.
I mean, look what Monsanto's going through with Roundup, right? I mean, that
and Monsanto is the one that owns all those sprays and all those pesticides and herbicides. So if that's being sprayed onto the plants, whatever gets sprayed onto a plant, you consume it. So I'm not saying specifically one brand or one thing, but as a small farmer, as a grower, I realized that was the case. My own cousin was smoking cannabis that was like hard rock. And I said, dude, where'd you get this from? Oh, my homie brought it over, and he's a good grower. I said, no, this has PGRs in it. Yeah. You don't get golf ball nugs. Not organically, not naturally. So there's little things that we know. You don't get leaves that are huge in the tobacco.
In high school, my stuff from Mexico smelled like gasoline, and I used to sell that shit.
Hey, that was the diesel. You know how that diesel flavor came in or smell came in?
Diesel OG? Yeah. It came across the border.
Yeah, but they also stashed it in their gas tanks to bring it over. So
I used to pay $8 an ounce for that stuff that used to come over in gas tanks, right? So cheap, so junky, full of seeds, stems and rocks.
But back then, that's what was available. Try selling that now. People will laugh at you because, consumers are...
It's your lawn clippings.
They're American or California, LA consumers have gotten very spoiled and very demanding lately, or have been for a while. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to tobacco industry is shifting over from tobacco to vapes. As big companies realize that union costs, taxes, and all these are too difficult to, maintain. And so that's why they went into vapes, and they're trying to come up with these, alternative smoking methods so that they can be on the market.
I'm still surprised we don't have IQOS here in the U.S. because they were the only people who got an FDA cessation device, right?
Not according to LA, California laws or American laws.
I mean,
that's why they're not here.
But that's federal. They got an FDA-approved cessation device, which should
But for whatever reason, they can't release it here. So something's not.
Something's up.
Yeah, because people get it from international when they're traveling. So my concern right now is what's going to happen to hookah in the next 5 to 10 years. We were talking about it's going to be instinct. It's people who grow their own or can get their hands on it will have it. I don't know if that many retail lounges will exist. It might just be websites shipping to you.
Even that's already tough. I mean, when SB 38 was defeated, SB 39, which was a shipping regulation, still went through, right? So that puts, more and more regulation on shipping within California to California, right? And then you have the federal shipping stuff. The FDA has already stated that they'll phase out menthol exemption in their flavor bans. We're moving towards a flavorless society when it comes to tobacco, and the federal government will get there eventually. As soon as there are enough states that have passed their own versions of flavor bans, and currently we only have Massachusetts and California, right? But if other large states fall, New York came very close, and it will carry over into next year, right? Jersey, Illinois, these states, they're going to pass. And when you get enough movement towards that, then eventually the federal government, another Pallone bill will come up, HR 2339, I believe the number was, and they'll eventually get it across the finish line.
I mean, in California, they want to be like smog free or whatever by 2050, and by 2030, their goal was to be smoke free, no cigarettes, tobacco, or whatever. How does that make sense if you're going to have cannabis lounges? Or you're permitting cannabis lounges?
That's all the contradictions and the hypocrisy of LA County Board of Supervisors. That same very tumultuous bipolar day that we had was the grand opening of the first cannabis lounge in West Hollywood.
Lowell Cafe or Lowell Lounge,
which actually served marijuana in hookahs
and food.
And then another hypocrisy. Berkeley City Council banned flavored tobacco, and 35 minutes later decriminalized psilocybin. So mushrooms, good. Hookah, tobacco, bad.
And that's how uninformed these people are, and they don't care. I mean, we're obviously taking a beating, and I think, unfortunately, if we don't make enough noise, if we don't get active and involved, the culture, the tradition, the industry will slowly twinkle away. And once they start enforcing next year, I hope they don't, but they're probably going to start enforcing. It's going to get interesting.
It's going to get crazy. I mean, we'll be ready with whatever we can, but I mean, people call up after the fact in certain municipalities, and they're like, oh my God, what are they going to do? The city just sent me a letter said I can't sell my hookah stuff anymore. And I go, I called you a dozen times to come show up. Yeah. It's over. It's done. They passed it. It's went into effect, and of course you waited.
They didn't realize that the fight. Here's another thing to everyone out there: get involved when policy is happening, when they're passing policy, when they're talking policy, not after the fact. A lot of people were telling me, "Oh, I'll sue them. You don't understand. I have lawyers." Bro, the city has unlimited money. Okay, the city is gonna fight you until you run out of money and you close your shop. And in the meantime, they'll raid you 20 times, so you'll definitely have 20 criminal cases. And I see it happening, and I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen with cannabis. So you got to get involved before. Build relationships. Get involved. Meet, candidates. Have conversations. That's what's going to make you relevant when it comes down to policy. And you already have those relationships, and all you got to do is request a meeting and educate your lawmaker. They're human. It's not their fault. They pass like 200, 500 bills every year. They don't know everything.
If I had more energy and resources to go after municipalities here in California, I would be going back and retroactively trying to get them to change that bill or whatever ordinance they put into effect to just mirror SB 793, because it makes consumer confusion and vendor retailer confusion so much easier, and it also puts some of the onus onto the state for enforcement, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean that was our ask. Mirror SB, 793, because it made it easy to educate the small business owner as well. Now it's like, the state says this. By the way, if you're in LA, you have a different.
And if you're unincorporated county, you can't at all.
And if you're here, if you're a couple cigarette shops,
this street, like the one La Crescenta up there, moved catty corner across the way because they were in unincorporated LA County.
They moved Glendale.
They moved over, and they're technically in Glendale, right? Just so they can keep going. And I'm like, these guys had to uproot their stuff, and they literally went across the street.
Yeah, and they had leases, they had stuff, and I don't know if they had to pay out of their lease, and a lot of small business owners got stuck with their leases or had to, pay it out or get out, or some of them went bankrupt, some of them lost their credit, some of them got hit with big fines, and it's, I don't know if anything good is coming out of these flavor bans for the hookah community. I can't say it is, because even for the young generation or the youth they're trying to save, it's not true. The youth are not the problem, or hookah is not the problem for the youth. I would rather have young adults over 21, because when I say young adults, everybody's like, oh, you want to give hookah to kids. Hang out at a hookah lounge. I had ladies come down, college students that tell me, hey, I feel safe in a hookah lounge. I come do my homework, have a cup of tea, and I'm good.
How about our city attorney meeting in Burbank when she says, well, would you guys be opposed to making the age 25 in Burbank, and then that would be a lot easier for me to get an exemption for you guys, because studies show that the frontal cortex of your brain, especially for boys, isn't fully developed till 25. And I'm going, oh my God, we keep pushing this back, right?
Well, that's the interesting part, because they want you to be 25 to be able to smoke hookah, but you could have a sex change if you're 8 years old and 6 years old, and if you're confused. Or if you're a kid and your teacher says, hey, do you feel like a girl today? And I'll give you a candy if you say yes.
Oh,
and
my God,
like,
don't go for too far down that hole. You're going to lose. You're gonna lose a lot.
But I'm just saying that, it's those same people that were banning hookah or voting against it are now voting or passing laws that are more damaging to the younger generation than hookah would ever be, in my opinion. This is my personal opinion. And, from drag queens reading to kids to, if you're against a drag queen reading to kids, you're against gay people. I'm like, no. Well, I got homies that are gay, and I love them. They're good people. They're actually...
Whoop, whoop, I'm right here.
And they're not for, I don't think, drag queens reading to kids.
It's one thing... I met Eric at a gay hookah lounge. That first meeting with Eric Hoffman from Tangiers in 2002 was in Hillcrest at the gayest hookah lounge, and I was still closeted. I was afraid to go there, right? But it was so intriguing to me, right? But that was when smoking was 18, right? So you could go there and still go experience some of the gay nightlife, but you weren't old enough to go drinking yet, right? And so people will say, well, hookah's used and menthol cigarettes are used more in the gay community than in heterosexual circles. And I go, we also don't have kids. We're also hedonistic, and we also party, because we did a lot of that in our 20s.
Yeah, and I mean, and more power to you, right? Why shouldn't you? If you're not hurting anyone, you're not forcing it onto kids. And if it used to be 18 and over, I think when we had the first retail store, it was 18 and over.
Yep.
And then how is that fair for the people that already were smoking, and all of a sudden you're like, by the way, for the next 3 years, you can't buy any more smokes from us?
There was an exemption for military service people because they had such a high rate of cigarette consumption among military people. So if you had a smoke shop and you wanted to still sell to an 18-year-old, they had to be military, which is crazy.
And which we care about our military. We want them to smoke. Smoking causes cancer, so figure that one out.
Yeah, oh my God. No, one of the great stories are some of the veterans that are really involved in the hookah community and talk about some of their experiences and how sitting around with their fellow veterans smoking hookah and reminiscing about being in hookah smoking cultures like Iraq and Afghanistan, and they bond over it. One of the stories that one of our friends tells us is how when some local tribesmen in Afghanistan had stolen some of their barbed wire fencing. And so he had to go back out there and retrieve the U.S. property from them. And the guy wouldn't negotiate with him until he sat down and smoked hookah. And he's like, that I really like these things. He sat down and smoked with him and got back
the negotiator.
Yeah,
right?
It was like the peace pipe that had to be shared.
Exactly. And I mean, it's like breaking bread. And that's what I feel like. It is the peace pipe. That was part of our conversation also for the Middle Eastern community. And I think hookah itself is not harmful. If, once a night people smoke, once a week, I don't know what the regular consumers, there's people that smoke more often than not, but you could abuse coffee. I drink 15 to 20 cups of coffee a day. Don't talk to me when I haven't had coffee or when I'm on the 20th one, because I'm a whole different person. But at the end of the day, in America, we should have the freedom to express ourselves, to live a culture for ourselves, not hurting people.
That's a whole nother podcast. Land of the free. Yes. The most laws out of any developed nation. How about the most incarcerated individuals out of any developed nation? Yeah, free my butt. Okay, sure. But like
that should be a shirt. Free my butt.
Free my butt. That's what I'm going to campaign on.
There you go.
But it's like, people will say, I want to say one thing about the culture thing. It's like, in every culture, you want to raise your kids right. You want to protect them. You want to have something better than what you had for your next generation. And there's nobody arguing that. If hookah was damaging the next generation of people, I would not be here lobbying to save my small industry. I would go get a different job. If hookah was used at the same rates in 2017, 2018 as Juul amongst high school students and middle school students, if hookah had those kind of numbers, I wouldn't be making hookahs. That's for damn sure. So
yeah, you and I both. And I mean, we did a whole study where Middle East had a lower cancer rate, which they were saying people smoke more hookah than other countries. And so if hookah caused cancer, or hookah smoking by itself, then why don't all of Middle East have cancer, right? So it's like we had reasonable arguments, factual arguments, and
oh my God, that 100 cigarette studies, and then that's arbitrary. They could just say 200 cigarettes and make up different time frames for that they want.
Yeah, and then it was like Chinese packed hookah out of a Chinese aluminum pipe, Chinese lead.
I read the Georgetown University study, and they cited their stuff, and they bought Alamere from my website. I was like, damn it, I sold them the stuff for that fucking study.
Right? You would have been like, put some other stuff in it for them to like come up all crazy.
No, you didn't know what they were buying. They're buying 50 grams. They bought 3 Kings charcoal. Come on, man. We call that shit cancer charcoal. That's the worst charcoal ever.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing, that they wouldn't let us, the industry folks, participate in their studies and actually pack the hookahs or smoke it through stainless steel pipes and how we would smoke it. And that was the challenges we had. So I think we're gonna come on back pretty soon, George.
Yeah, let's get.
We've had
let's
a long
get
conversation. You're running out of coals.
Let's get Rima here. Let's get Neve here. Anybody else from the hookah community? It'd be great to have a big round table jerga.
Definitely. Let us know. DM. Get in touch. Follow. Click. And we should have another follow up within the next month or two, or early 2024. See where the hookah industry is at and where the laws are falling, and we could see who else we could invite to the party.
Yalla shabab, smoke responsibly, 21 and up, and come hang out with us another time.
Stay blessed. Cheers.